And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. I'm Mike Harrison, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. I want to thank you for joining me today. I've got a great show planned. It's a show that I've always wanted to do, and we're going to talk about foundations, property foundations. It seems that foundations are a common problem here in North Texas. It's been my experience as a real estate investor in Texas that it's not if you will have a foundation problem, it's more often as to when you'll have a foundation problem. And if you've listened to me for any amount of time, you'll recall I often say real estate investing is a team sport. Well, I have one of those team members on the show today. I've never met this individual, but I've used his services many times as a single-family rental property owner. I found him on our vendor list, and if you don't know what the vendor list is, as a member of Lifestyles Unlimited, you have access to folks who tailor their services directly to real estate investors. And essentially, you're talking to an expert that also understands what you're doing with the property, how you're setting this property up, how you're going to make this property cash flow. And prior to Lifestyles Unlimited, honestly, I didn't know any better. When I needed work to be done, I just winged it, right? I just called somebody essentially out of their book. But no, you can find people that are experts in their field. You can find people that tailor their business to a particular segment, like real estate investing. You don't have to guess. You've got avenues to find these folks. So I want to bring this individual on. Gavin, I really thank you for joining us today. If you would, how'd you end up in the foundation business?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I ended up in the foundation business by a friend of mine gave me a job. I ended up as a foreman, and that's kind of how I grew up in the industry, learning to lift up properties with engineers on site. That was the most important thing, is having the engineers there on site while we were lifting these properties, because not only did I work with one engineer, I worked with several across the DFW Metroplex, and they're still around today, so we still do business with them. The
engineer essentially certifies that the foundation has been corrected to a point, or what are they doing exactly, Gavin?
They're basically, they're a green light at the closing table. If you have an engineer's report, they're certifying that everything has been done acceptable to them. And if we were working side by side when I was a foreman, and so we would lift the houses. They would look at it and be like, yeah, you're good to go. Okay, they'd sign off. So we got a lot of help from them, just learning how to maneuver houses. Some of are a little difficult. You have to get an engineer kind of involved on a property that has multi additions. Those are
different sides. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because, you have your main structure that you have to, get straight, and then everything else is kind of built off the side of it, so you have to. So they come in really handy on those situations, but they helped me learn when I was a foreman, and then I went into sales, and then I went into owning and started my own company, Straight Line Foundation Repair, in 2007. That was a hard hit, because the next year we had pretty much
2008
crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
08 through 10, definitely a tough time in a lot of different ways. Gavin, take a moment. Why are foundation issues so common in North Texas?
Our soil is different than most other areas. We have a heavy bentonite clay in our soil, and you hear a lot of people talk about Texas gumbo. That soil's it's black gumbo that we're digging in. It's sticky, it's expansive, and really what we try to get people to understand is there's two killers in foundation repair: too much water or not enough water. It's always the case. We don't have earthquakes or major landslides in this area, so it's usually that expansion soil that wrecks our homes. And we have to be mindful of gutters, drainage, any negative areas where water's ponding up against the house. And, those are the two things that I try to impose on everybody is water issues. In 2018, in October, we got 2 foot of rain in October.
Yeah.
1 month. So see how it comes on like that. And we live in Texas where we get these droughts like we had last year, and our 100-degree summer started in May.
So, Gavin, is it just older homes that have foundation issues, or does the home have to be a certain age where these show up, or what's the story there?
We're seeing a lot of these new homes, all these homes that are going up in these different areas are having foundation issues. They're built right on top of each other. Drainage issues, maybe not all of them have gutters. Those are different decisions for homeowners to make when they purchase their home in these subdivisions. A lot of the times, having gutters will help you so much, but we're seeing failures in these newer homes as well, 10 years minus.
What do you think's causing that?
I personally think that it might be a overusage of post-tension. There's cost variance there, and I'm not sure what they have in it, but if you look at our bridges and everything that's built around us, we all have rebar sticking out everywhere. Those things are strong. We drive on them every day. We don't even worry about it. But when we look at our houses and these newer homes that are being built, these homes are being, the post-tension, if you look at it, each cable has a starting and ending point in your slab. They're on the outside of your home. If you walk around, you'll see these little round holes that end up, all around your house. Rebar doesn't have that. It's all encased in your concrete, so you never see protruding rebar. If you do, you start getting rot in the rebar, and it'll cause your concrete to flake off.
Yeah,
the same thing for the post-tension. If you get water into the collars of the post-tension cables where those grout marks are on the side of your foundation, those post-tension cables collars can rot, and the cable could end up on the other side of your house. We've seen them many times sticking out of the side of the house. You've probably seen them sticking out of the side of the house before.
Yes.
That's the cause, is the collar on the other side, rotted, and it, let the cable, protrude.
That brings up a point on post-tensioning. So talk to me about, your guys go in, I had to have some internal piers on this most recent one. It was the kitchen that was essentially sinking down, and the bathroom. There was a sewer leak underneath and caused a lot of issues. But if they're coming down and jackhammering, what happened? Can they hit those post-tension cables? Is that dangerous? Does that create an issue?
Yeah, it's dangerous, and what we're dealing with is a failure already.
Yeah.
If we're in there doing foundation repair, we're dealing with a failure on the cable already. We don't know how much pressure it has on it, but we try to stay away from them. If we see them, we'll just move off the side of it and try to, re-break our hole out in that area. It's not uncommon to get into one and break it loose, but, we try to watch that as much as possible. But we're dealing with a failure anyways. Why, if we had tension on the cable, why is the house failing?
Yeah. What's causing it as it's coming down?
Causing it? And we go back to water issues, the ground swelling and heaving, plumbing problems. Those all have an effect on the property.
Yeah, typically, this one had a plumbing problem, but I bought a house that, and I guess the guy living in there was trees that were growing. Literally, they were touching the brick, and so the roots had just ate up the foundation in a bunch of areas. But we didn't have to do any interior piers, but we had to do exterior piers. So how's it work? I mean, you dig a hole underneath. Just tell me the magic that makes this thing work. How do you do it?
Okay, so we have several different kind of piers with concrete, which is the most cost effective. We try to sell those more, towards investors. Steel piers, hybrids, which is a combination of steel and concrete, helicals, and drill piers. If you were standing at the wall of your house, any wall, just standing at the front wall of your house, We would basically dig a 2 foot by 2 foot by 3 foot deep hole right in front of your brick wall and get underneath your concrete beam that's holding your brick up.
Yeah.
At that point, we would we would use a hydraulic ram to press these 1 foot tall, 6-inch round concrete cylinders into the ground. And, you hear a lot of people talk about, we're going to hit bedrock. Really, we don't know where bedrock is. In Irving, you can press 36 feet deep.
Wow.
In Fort Worth, you can press 2. So really what we're dealing with is a point of refusal, okay? So we'll press that pier to a point of refusal, which is greater than the weight of your house. And then that pier, that machine will actually, lift your house up a little bit as it's trying to press that pier in the ground. Once we're done with that, we put a cap block on it, and we get all the piers ready and jacks set, and then we slowly lift it up to meet our desired readings.
So it's a jack, just like you're jacking up your car to change a tire that's down in there.
It's a 30-ton bottle jack. It's a little bit, it's a bit
cool. And the hydraulic ram jack, electric, gas, what's running that?
Both electric and gas. Mm-hmm. They both press about 8,000 psi, and our cylinders are rated at like 60. I think they're rated at 3,500, 6,500 psi.
Wow. Yeah, it's it can't be an easy job. I mean, you mentioned the gumbo mud that we have here. That's causing the problem, the foundation. And then for your team to get in there and fix it, they've got to dig through the same gumbo mud and create a hole big enough to put a ram jack and hydraulic ram and then the jacks and everything else. And then once they jack it up, it's just little concrete cylinders that they use, Gavin?
Yeah, once we get everything leveled off in the house or work to the elevations that we want, because we don't always want zero through the home. If the house is showing -5s everywhere, we would want to get it up to -5, and that would be pretty level around the house. After that, we lift the house and we'll set a cylinder in there on the cap, pull our jack out, set another cylinder, and then backfill the hole. Sometimes we have to break out concrete on porches, so we backfill the hole and then put concrete back. And in the front, we just try to leave it better than we got there.
And then the last step is the engineer certification.
They're scheduled out on their own because we don't have their schedule, but they will come out within a week and certify everything.
So they're measuring and they're saying essentially the level of the slab foundation has been lifted and it's correct, and then they sign off on that certification. And that's when I sell the house. People are always saying, well, did you have foundation repair? I say, yes. Here's the warranty. Here's the engineer certification. And it really hasn't been a problem for me. When we come back, though, I want to talk about just the stigma that's associated with purchasing a house that has foundation issues. Like I said, I started before I became effective and learned really how to do it with Lifestyles Unlimited. And at that time, I thought if it had foundation issue, it was persona non grata. I moved on to the next house, and turns out that wasn't very effective at all. My name's Mike Harrison. We'll be right back.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
We went from 100% live to 100% virtual. And the funny thing is that nobody wants to go back to work now they work from home, right? So now my members are like, well, Del, we want to keep those virtual things open because now I know all the people in Miami and I know all the people in Chicago. I know all the people now know each other from all over the country because of these virtual events.
The free workshop, How to Retire in 5 Years or Less, is online. Go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Creating the lifestyle you've always wanted. You're hearing Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome back to the show. If you have any questions or comments, please send me an email. My email address is askmike@luinc.com, askmike@luinc.com. I'm here to help. If you'd like to learn more about real estate investing, if you've got questions about foundation repair, I've got Gavin on the show today, and Gavin's the owner of Straight Line Foundation. Gavin, why don't you go ahead and share your contact info before we get too deep in this segment?
Sure, no problem. So it's Straight Line Foundation Repair and Drainage Solutions, straightlinefoundationrepair.com. Our phone number is Metro is 817-640-1000. 800 number is 1-866-202-7437. 1-866-202-PEER.
Let's talk about, we left off when I first started as a real estate investor, and I don't know where this came from, and maybe it's just common belief out there, but essentially if you came across a property and it needed foundation repairs, or if it had previous foundation repairs, you just walked from that property. You didn't buy it, and I was wrong in that. In fact, I learned as I became a much better real estate investor. Why is there such a stigma with foundation?
I don't know. I don't know. Everybody that lives in North Texas knows that we have a lot of foundation repair companies here. That's part of it.
Back to life here.
Yeah, it's the you can get good deals, and I've always told everybody we've done road shows for you guys. So at the road shows, I'm like, look, don't pass up a foundation issue. See what it's going to cost. Get us out here first, and then make your decision, because a lot of it's based on you guys plugging your numbers in to in a magical calculator. What's going to work for you guys?
You figure you're going to put $35,000 into it, and I'm just pulling a number out of midair. And if that still provides an equity capture and it cash flows, what is $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 within that 35 to fix the foundation? Really, it's just another cost. Associated. So if it makes sense, it makes sense. But I think there's a lot of people out there that they're just, especially maybe people that aren't from Texas. Do you work with some investors that don't live here, that are from out of state?
Yeah, actually, the slab I was just telling you about, he's in California. So, we do have property management companies that we work with owners that are out of state. So we have to manage that. And, I was having to talk with them because we had to go in. We had a few things to deal with on that slab, so we had to stop. And so, yes, we do have people from out of state.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks that we have a saying here, live where you want, invest where you want. And obviously the numbers in just about all over Texas make sense here more than they do in some other places. And so you've got a lot of these out-of-town investors. So essentially you're doing the repair. I take it you're taking pictures through the process and sending that back so they can see it's done. Or I guess the management company handles that. Is that correct?
No, we'll facilitate some of that. It just depends on how it works out. If we're dealing with the management company, or if we're dealing with the contract or the GC for the buyer, it depends a lot of the times, but we try to facilitate that as much as possible.
Gotcha. Gavin, how did you become associated with Lifestyles Unlimited? I know you said you started your business in 2007, and then you had the 2008 through 2010, the terrible times there. How'd you end up with Lifestyles?
Well, we started trying to find the people that were buying houses. I was out there beating the streets.
That's us.
And ran across your group and became vendors. And I think we've been with you since 2009 or 10. You really pulled us through. We had some investors that we were working with those first couple of years, but when the housing market took a turn back in 2008, we weren't doing any foundations for home buyers. We were doing it for all of our investors, and investors have been our bread and butter, and we try to treat them, as such, because they carried us through those hard years.
Yeah, we were the only ones buying any properties during that time. Everybody else was essentially laying low, just hunkering down, and we were still buying 2008 through 2010. A lot of folks don't realize that, but yeah, we were buying. So, Gavin, what do you like about working with real estate investors versus, not to say you don't do work for people on their own personal homes or property owners, but what are the advantages of working with real estate investors?
Volume. You guys buy a lot of houses, and that's what we try, that's why we try to take care of our investors as much as possible, is because it's always a word of mouth with us, or they're telling their other investor friend, or we're doing a road show, or we're doing a case study there in Irving. So it's always good to see new faces too. I love seeing those new faces at the case study, and they have a lot of questions. And one of the first things I tell them is don't be scared of a house that has foundation issues. I try to stress that to them, But I love working with investors because you see a kind of a blank slate, a house that nobody wanted, and then you come back, at a later time, and you're like, wow, families living here. It's in their portfolio, or they've liquidated that property or something. But you see the process, and you're like, wow, you should have seen this house before, right?
Yeah, well, the transformation is amazing. So the first time I bought a property that needed foundation work, it was essentially a hard money lender that I had worked with on several properties, and this particular house was in a neighborhood where I owned several other houses, and so they called me, and they already had, and you guys did the work, they already had the foundation quote, the rehab quote. It was all teed up for me, and so I went and looked at the house, and Gavin, I'm telling you, I'm standing in the master bedroom, the bathroom on the master side, and I'm looking, and you know how the wall is supposed to be perpendicular, right? It comes up and then it takes a 90-degree turn. Well, I'm looking at that top, the ceiling and the wall, and I can see into the attic. I mean, there was like a 4-inch gap there. And so I was a little afraid, and I called my hard money lender back and said, I don't know about this. And he said, Mike, everything's going to be fine. And so got you guys in there. You started doing the work. I came back, and I opened the front door, and all I see, there's a guy in the living room, and the only part sticking out is his head, and he's digging a hole in the living room, and there's, Gavin, I think there was 4 or 5 feet of dirt in the living room, and it freaked me out. It's kind of freaky.
So sometimes it gets more than just 4 piers.
From what I understand, there's times when you're lifting the foundation and a pipe can crack. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Bringing it through on the process. Now, do you recommend having, let's say you've got a tenant in the property and they need some interior piers, and like you said, it's about a day. It's obviously not a quiet process if you're jackhammering through a slab. Do you recommend they wait until that resident moves out, or have you done it with residents still living in the property? What's that look like?
We've done it both ways. The residents living in the property, or maybe you'll be displaced to a hotel or something during the process, or we've had investors just wait until their lease is up and they move them out, and then they do the remodel. They're ready. They've got some money saved up. But we've done it both ways. We try to be, very tenant friendly. We have to coordinate with the tenants as well to get into there. So that's one of the processes. Is we'll get a call from the management company, and then we'll have to call the tenant to get access.
I always want to make sure. I mean, the resident, I look at it as my client, right? They're renting a property, a great property, best product, best price. Now I've got an issue. I've got a repair that needs to be done, and I essentially, I'm not going to go over the top, but I want to make sure the resident's comfortable with whatever's happening. If they want the repair done, well, I give them the option. I'm like, hey, we can fix this. If it's plumbing, we got to fix it. But if it's foundation and they're okay with it, maybe we wait until the property turns so that it's empty. But I will give them, I'm going to fix it one way or another. It's just, I want the resident of that property to be comfortable. And if they can move out for 2 or 3 days or go stay with friends or family or something like that, that works well also. So, Gavin, that property that I purchased, the hard money lender already had the foundation repair, the report, the estimate. Are you doing a lot of that on these properties that are in the process of being sold or about to be sold beforehand?
So that process would be considered, I'm trying to think of the word for it. Anyways, I'll go on.
Yeah, well, you're not necessarily getting called by an owner of the property. You're getting called by a property that a hard money lender has acquired, or maybe a wholesaler along those lines.
Wholesaler,
and so you're putting the cost together.
Wholesaler.
Yeah, you're putting the cost together beforehand. So is that what percentage of your business is working with those folks?
Not a lot. We do get a lot of wholesale, that will get the property, everything ready for them. But we work with a lot of investors. People that we work with are ready to go. The office gets a lot of calls. I'm usually in the field most of the day. I'm handling warranties, and I'm looking at new work, and also trying to find, new property management companies or new investors. So I would have to ask the office how many wholesale people that we get. We don't really know. They won't tell us that. We'll just get hey, come look at this property, and then we'll get a call back from maybe someone like you. Or to go back what you were saying about the tenants or clients, we've had some situations where the owner just sold the property to the tenant, and then we got the tenant back say, hey, yeah, we want to go ahead and get the foundation done. We bought the property from the owner. So those types of things work out too. So it's a negotiation whenever, like going back to what you were saying about doing the work while your client is in the home, we try to just manage it between however is easiest for everyone.
Yeah, that's my philosophy. What's going to work? What's the best practice here? What's going to ensure that I'm not just going to call them up and go, hey, we're doing foundation and you're just going to have to live with it.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the right way at all. Yeah. And, want that person to be happy where they live, and, just the whole process, the best we can do for them. A lot of times you're not having to go inside the property. You can just do it from the outside, and that's not disruptive at all.
Exactly.
So,
we may not need interior piers on every property.
Yeah. If it's an interior pier, Gavin, do you prefer going in through the slab in the house or tunneling from, say, the front of the house all the way to where you need to get to?
It depends. Some of these nicer homes, they don't want the floors torn up. So we do have to go in and put piers in. There's a house that we have in Cedar Hill that has 100 feet of tunnel under it.
Whoa.
With 15 piers under it, with access points. So if we have to do any adjustments, we can just access that area. So there are times where we don't go through the floor. We will tunnel, or there's options. We can foam inject Eurotech into the slab, which is a smaller 3/4-inch hole. And we can usually find some places that won't damage the floor in those situations.
Okay, so you can drill down and do it that way. Those tunnels, are those all dug by hand, or you got a special machine?
No, they're dug by hand.
Wow, backbreaking.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about how roofing in August in Texas is a tough job, and it is, no doubt, but tunneling underneath 100 feet underneath the property in Texas in August is not for the faint of heart, Gavin. Let's just put it that way.
Right. And not being under there isn't for the faint of heart. I went under there. It's not
Oh, yeah, the cave-in, the claustrophobia. You guys are worth you're worth every penny that you get paid. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. And for the listener, I want you to understand that just because a property has foundation issues, don't walk away from it. It's a mathematical equation. Get somebody like Gavin out there, get an expert's opinion as to what it's going to cost, plug that into your rehab, and it either makes sense or it doesn't make sense. But you got to remember, this is an investment. And if you can make the cash flow and the investment make sense, then it's a good investment. My name is Mike Harrison. I want you to remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle. Make it a great day.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.